This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update video for July 8th, 9:30 a.m. Here's a close-up of the HurTrack program showing the position of Tropical Depression number 2, which could still become a tropical storm before landfall. I'll show you the radar and satellite in just a minute. The yellow area indicates tropical storm warnings along the southeast Texas coast, but it looks like this might come into Mexico here, and it doesn't show the Mexican advisories down here, but they are up for, at least for the Matamoros area. Alright, let's go ahead and put this in motion and see what this looks like. And what you'll see is the system approaching the coast here by this afternoon. Here we go, around 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. It's making its way on shore near Brownsville, moves due west, and weakens quickly as the evening wears on. So again, there it is, approaching the coast, and the highest winds will be approaching right around 4 to 5 o'clock. Now, we have the countdown clock activated at Hurricane City, and I think there's only a few hours left on the countdown clock before this thing makes landfall. Here's our cone of air. The red line here indicates what the forecast was, and here the black line is the current position of our system, so it's taking a little bit of a northerly jog according to the hurricane hunters. Speaking of the hurricane hunters, there they are flying around. These are the wind barbs right offshore, and if I mouse over these wind barbs, we're only talking winds around 20, 25 knots. There's a couple of gusts, 39, but basically most of the winds are around 20, 25 mile-an-hour winds out of the east. Now, if we go back a couple of hours and you focus in on right where the center is, you can see here's one gust of 45 knots out of the east. So we may have ourselves a tropical storm here, even though most of these winds are below tropical storm force. All right, here's the radar. Let's pan this out. And you can see what looks to me as the center looks to be kind of hard to spot. I would say it's down in here somewhere. I would say the center is probably right down here, according to the radar presentation coming in here, the rotation. And again, this is moving up like this, so it's still going to affect Brownsville, Texas. Now, normally when we feature a city at Hurricane City, it's based on the trajectory of a storm. For example, we'll feature Padre Island, South Padre Island, out in here if this was going to travel more to the northwest and north-northwest while heading inshore. But the trajectory would indicate that Brownsville is going to get closer to the center of this than actually South Padre Island, Texas. So we feature Brownsville unless it's coming in more of a north-northwest course. That's just to let you know how we decide what cities to feature at Hurricane City. So there's the radar of our system. Let's take a look at the close-up visible loop. And again, you can see that the system is moving close to shore. And again, that center of circulation, if you look at this, the center is right up in here. And, you know, you look at the radar, and it looks like the center is down in here somewhere, but it's hard to tell. But looking at the visible shot, the radar's the center is right in here somewhere, and it's heading towards the coast. Now, why is it moving this way? Why isn't it strengthening? Let's get to the details on that. Actually, before I do that, let me just give you a rundown of what's happening in the rest of the Atlantic Basin. Besides potentially Bonnie making landfall in South Texas here, there's really nothing much else going on in the tropics right now. We have an area of disturbed weather right in here, and we have another one near the Windward Islands wave that traveled across from Africa. And the European model is indicating we're going to see, in about 4 or 5 days, we're going to see something develop down in here, but it's going to continue traveling into Central America or even go into the Pacific because of a ridge of high pressure up in here that's preventing these from turning north, which is good. But as the season wears on, we're going to find more weaknesses up in here for systems to travel a little bit further north. This is no indication of how the rest of the season is going to go. They're not all going to travel west into Central America and Texas. They're going to eventually, the intertropical convergence zone will end up in here somewhere, and then we'll see systems traveling further north. This is an upper level low out here, but it needs to be watched. Sometimes these can work down to the surface, and I'm sure the National Hurricane Center is keeping an eye on that. But westerly, northwesterly wind shear through here. There's a strong southerly fetch of wind in the eastern Gulf, though, that continues hampering the oil spill efforts. We have an upper level low out in here, which causes wind shear across the Atlantic. And again, that intertropical convergence zone is way too far south. It's way below. It's like 7, 8, 9 degrees. You like to see it around 10 or 11 north to get development out here in the Atlantic, and that's why we're not seeing any of these Cape Verde systems develop that far east. All right, back in 2005, we were watching tropical depression forming in the southeastern Caribbean Sea that would later become Hurricane Dennis. And it was a quick mover, too. Within four days or so, it made landfall right here in the Florida Panhandle, a Category 3 hurricane. And this would be a bad situation for the Gulf spill if we had a system like this moving in here. But luckily, things are quiet right now. We don't have anything close to that. We were up to the D named storm in 2005. We might get to the B named storm today. Keep in mind, in 2004, which was another active season, we were only up to the first named storm at this. Actually, the first named storm didn't even develop till the end of July. So, and we ended up with 17 or 18 named storms. I think it was 20 named storms. I have to go double check that. But 2004 was very active, and we're ahead of that already. So we're not as caught up as we are from 2005. All right, here's sailweather.info and the pressure fields. This is indicating where the system is going to go. Let's go ahead and draw the high pressure ridge and use the pressures around 10, 12 or higher. And you can see it right here. That's our nose of high pressure that's pushing in on our tropical depression, and it's going to push it right into Texas here in the South Texas coast. And that's because of all the pressures that are low, that are high enough here to push this system off to the west. And then you notice the lower pressures are up in here. But the lowest pressures are right where it's going, 1,007 millibars, 1,006 millibars, all in here. And that's usually where a system is going to go to the path of least resistance, which is low pressure. Here's the steering flow from the University of Wisconsin, from the upper level steerings flows. And you can see that we have, as I pointed out, the high pressure ridge over the southeast that's nudging in and pushing this system into Texas. This is just a graphical upper layer steering flow to indicate what I just pointed out with the sailweather.info map. Now here we are looking at the intertropical convergence zone and out towards Africa. And notice all this dry African dust out here. All this red area is all dry air. You can't get development of systems coming off Africa when you have this much dry air out here. The intertropical convergence zone is way down here. It's been pushed down to the south by a strong Azores high up here in the northeast Atlantic, and that's pushing that intertropical convergence zone. These systems can't get any spin going when they're this far south, so then what they usually do is just run into South America, or they skirt Venezuela here, and they end up in the southwestern Atlantic basin where they could potentially develop. But until this intertropical convergence zone gets up around 10, 11, 12 north, we're not going to see any Cape Verde systems, so we'll have to wait a little while on that. Here are the pressures in the Atlantic Basin, and I touch on this every now and then. I bring this map up because it's indicating lower pressures generally in the Atlantic Basin right in here. All the purples and blues are lower than normal pressures, and when you have low pressures, that indicates warmer sea surface temperatures and larger hurricanes. And we saw that with Alex. It was a very large system, so that's why it took it a while to get its act together. But that's going to be the theme this hurricane season, large systems that take a little while to get developed, and once they do, they're going to crank up and become very powerful. They're working on the oil spill out there again. Seas have calmed down a little bit. By tomorrow, they'll probably be able to get out there and closer to the coast and continue on with the skimming operations. And there's all the vessels out there. There's probably about 25 of them out there. All right, well, that's it for now. We'll continue to leave the recon program up here on the live feed and show you the oil spill throughout the day on HurricaneCity.tv as Tropical Storm Bonnie makes landfall in South Texas. That's it for now. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.